The stagecoach accident that killed her husband and shattered her leg happened on a Tuesday, and Lily Graves decided that Tuesday would forever be the cruelest day of the week. She stood outside the general store in Montrose, Colorado, leaning heavily on the crutch the doctor had carved for her, watching the world move at a pace she could no longer match. It was late spring in 1882, and the mountain air still carried a bite that made her bad leg ache even worse. The wooden crutch dug into her armpit, a constant reminder that she would never dance again, never run, never be the woman she once was. Her husband Thomas had been dead for 8 months now, buried in the small cemetery on the hill overlooking the Uncompahgre River. And some days the grief felt as fresh as the moment she watched them lower his pine coffin into the ground. She was 24 years old and felt ancient. "Mrs. Graves, can I help you with those supplies?" Old Mr. Henderson called from the doorway of his store, his weathered face creased with concern. "I can manage," Lily said, though they both knew it was a lie. Everything was a struggle now, getting dressed in the morning, carrying water from the well, walking the 30 yards from her small house to Main Street without stopping to rest. She had been a schoolteacher before the accident, but the schoolhouse had stairs, and the children needed someone who could chase them during recess, and the school board had very politely suggested that perhaps she should rest and recover. They hired someone else 2 months later. The compensation from the stagecoach company had been meager, $50 and their deepest sympathies. It would not last forever, and Lily had no family in Colorado, no one to help shoulder the burden of survival in a territory that did not suffer the weak gladly. She was loading her few purchases into the saddlebag of the gentle mare she could still manage to mount when she heard the commotion down the street. A horse had spooked, rearing and bucking, and its rider was fighting to maintain control. Lily stepped back instinctively, but her bad leg gave way and she stumbled, dropping her crutch. She braced for the impact with the hard, packed dirt, but strong hands caught her instead. "Steady there," a deep voice said, and when Lily looked up, she found herself staring into the bluest eyes she had ever seen. The man who held her was tall, broad-shouldered, with sun-darkened skin and dark hair that curled slightly beneath his hat. He had the look of someone who spent his life outdoors, all lean muscle and quiet strength. He steadied her carefully, then bent to retrieve her crutch. "You dropped this." "Thank you," Lily said, taking it from him, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. She hated being helpless, hated needing rescue. That horse came close. "Are you hurt?" His eyes swept over her with genuine concern, and Lily noticed he wore the clothes of a working cowhand, though his gun belt was well maintained and his boots, despite the dust, were good quality. "I am fine. Just clumsy." She secured the crutch under her arm and tried to step away to end this humiliating encounter, but he did not move aside. "Jake Emerson," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "I work at the Double R Ranch just north of town." "Mrs. Graves," Lily said stiffly, emphasizing the Mrs. Even though she wore no ring anymore. She had sold her wedding band 3 weeks ago to pay for medicine. "Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Graves." His smile was warm, friendly, with no trace of the pity she saw in most people's eyes when they looked at her now. "Can I help you mount up?" "That mare looks patient, but the street is getting crowded." Lily wanted to refuse, wanted to cling to the shreds of her independence, but she was tired and her leg throbbed, and the thought of struggling to mount the horse while people watched made her want to weep. "Yes," she said quietly. "Thank you." Jake Emerson helped her mount with a gentleness that surprised her, his hands careful and respectful, and once she was settled in the saddle, he handed her the reins. "You ride careful now, Mrs. Graves. These mountain roads can be tricky." Lily nodded and guided the mare toward home, but she could feel his eyes on her back the whole way down the street. She did not expect to see Jake Emerson again, but 2 days later, he appeared at her door with a load of firewood on his wagon. "I did not order firewood," Lily said, standing in her doorway, confused. "I know," Jake said, already unloading the split logs. "But I was cutting wood for the ranch and had extra. Seemed ashamed to let it go to waste. I cannot pay you, did not ask you to." He carried an armload to the woodshed beside her house and began stacking it neatly. Lily watched him work, uncertain what to make of this. Men did not do favors without expecting something in return, she had learned. The world was not kind enough for simple generosity. "Why are you doing this?" she asked when he came back for another load. Jake paused, a piece of wood in each hand, and looked at her directly. "Because you need firewood and I have some to spare. Is not any more complicated than that, Mrs. Graves." "People do not usually help me," Lily said, and hated how small her voice sounded. "Well, that is their failing, not yours." He continued working, and Lily retreated into her house, unsure how to process this unexpected kindness. The firewood lasted 2 weeks, and Lily tried to put Jake Emerson out of her mind, but he appeared again, this time with a bag of cornmeal and salt pork. "The ranch cook ordered too much," he said by way of explanation. "Boss said to distribute it in town rather than let it spoil." "Why bring it to me? Why not?" Jake's blue eyes were steady, honest. "You are alone out here, Mrs. Graves. No shame in accepting help when it is offered freely." This time, Lily invited him in for coffee. It was poor hospitality to leave him standing on her doorstep, she reasoned. And it had been so long since she had spoken to another person beyond transactional exchanges at the store. They sat at her small kitchen table, and Jake told her about the ranch, about the cattle drives and the difficult work of managing a herd in mountain country. He spoke easily, without the awkwardness most men showed around her, and Lily found herself relaxing, sharing small details about her life before the accident. "I was a teacher," she said. "I loved it. The children, the books, helping them learn." "Why did you stop?" Lily gestured to her crutch, propped against the wall. "The school board decided I was not fit for the position anymore." "That is foolish," Jake said bluntly. "Teaching happens in the mind and heart, not the legs." The simple validation of her worth made Lily's throat tighten with unexpected emotion. "Thank you for saying that. It is just the truth." He finished his coffee and stood, settling his hat back on his head. "I should get back to the ranch. Thank you for the coffee, Mrs. Graves." "Lily," she said impulsively. "My name is Lily." Jake's smile was like sunrise. "Lily, that is a pretty name, suits you." After he left, Lily sat at her empty table and felt something she had not experienced in 8 months. Hope. Jake's visits became regular after that. Every few days, he would appear with some excuse, some reason to stop by. Once it was a broken fence post he offered to fix. Another time, he brought fresh venison from a hunting trip. Lily began to anticipate his arrivals, to find herself listening for the sound of his horse, and she recognized the danger in that. She was a widow, damaged and poor, and Jake Emerson was young and strong and vital. Whatever kindness motivated him, it could not be romantic interest. Men did not fall in love with broken women who could barely walk. But Jake kept coming, and slowly, Lily began to talk about things she had never told anyone. About the accident, the moment the stagecoach wheel hit the rock and they tumbled down the embankment. About waking up in the doctor's office to learn that her husband was dead and her leg was shattered beyond proper repair. About the pain that never fully left, the ache that lived in her bones and her heart. "Some days I wonder why I survived," she confessed one evening as they sat on her small porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and pink. "Thomas died instantly," they said. "He did not suffer, But I am here, and I am not whole, and I do not know what purpose there is in this half-life." "You are whole," Jake said quietly. "You are just different than you were before." "I am broken," Lily corrected, and the word tasted bitter. "I cannot do the things I used to do. I cannot teach or dance or even walk to church without arriving exhausted and in pain. What kind of life is this?" Jake was silent for a long moment, and Lily, worried she had revealed too much, had burdened him with her despair. But then he turned to her, his blue eyes serious in the fading light. "My father died when I was 16, he said. "Trampled by a bull. He was the strongest man I knew, and in one moment he was gone. My mother followed him 6 months later. Just gave up, I think. Heartbreak can kill as surely as any injury. I was alone, and I was angry, and I thought my life was over before it properly started." "What changed?" Lily asked softly. "I realized that life does not owe us fairness. Bad things happen to good people, and we can either let it destroy us, or we can choose to keep living anyway." He looked out at the mountains, his profile strong against the sunset. "You survived that accident for a reason, Lily. Maybe you have not figured out what that reason is yet, but you are here, and you are stronger than you think." "I do not feel strong. I feel broken into pieces that will never fit back together properly." Jake turned to her then, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "Then maybe you are not supposed to fit back together the way you were before. Maybe you are becoming something new, something different. That does not make you less. It just makes you you." Lily felt tears sliding down her cheeks, and she did not have the strength to stop them. "I will never be whole again," she whispered. Jake reached over and took her hand, his palm warm and calloused against hers. "Then I will love your broken pieces too." The words hung in the air between them, profound and terrifying and wonderful. Lily stared at him, her heart hammering. "Jake, you cannot mean that." "I do mean it." He squeezed her hand gently. "I have been coming here for weeks now, Lily, and it is not because of charity or pity. It is because I think about you when I am not here, because your strength amazes me. Because when I am with you, everything makes sense in a way it does not the rest of the time. I am a widow. I am damaged. You are a woman I care about deeply." Jake's voice was firm. "And if you tell me you do not feel anything for me, I will respect that and leave you alone. But if there is even a chance that you might feel the same way, then I would like to court you properly. Lily Graves." Lily's mind spun. She thought of Thomas, of the guilt that came with even considering moving forward. But Thomas was gone, and she was still here, and Jake Emerson was looking at her like she was something precious and whole despite all evidence to the contrary. "I do feel something," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've tried not to, but I do. You have been kinder to me than anyone in my life, Jake, but I am afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That you will realize I am too much work, that the reality of my limitations will wear on you, that you will come to resent the burden of me." The words spilled out, all her secret fears laid bare. Jake shifted closer, still holding her hand. "Lily, listen to me. You are not a burden. You are a person I admire and care for. Yes, you have a bad leg. Yes, some things are harder for you than they are for others. But that does not define your worth, and it certainly does not diminish my feelings for you." "You say that now," Lily said, but her protests were weakening. "And I will say it every day for the rest of my life if that is what it takes for you to believe it." Jake's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "I am not going anywhere, Lily, not unless you tell me to." Lily looked into his eyes and saw only honesty there, only the steady certainty that had drawn her to him from the beginning. She thought about the long, lonely months since Thomas died, the way she had shrunk her world down to survival. And here was Jake Emerson, offering her something more, offering her a future she had stopped believing was possible. "I do not want you to go," she said finally. Jake's smile was radiant. "Then I will stay." The courting that followed was unlike anything Lily had experienced before. Jake treated her injury as simply a fact of life, neither ignoring it nor treating her like glass because of it. When they went for walks, he matched his pace to hers without comment and always made sure there was somewhere she could rest if needed. When he took her to church socials, he brought her a chair and sat beside her, engaging her in conversation rather than leaving her stranded on the sidelines. He also challenged her in ways that were both frustrating and exhilarating. When Lily said she could not do something, Jake would ask, "Cannot, or have not tried?" He built her a mounting block for her mare so she could get on and off by herself. He suggested she apply to tutor children privately since the school board was too short-sighted to see her value. He treated her like a capable woman who happened to walk with a crutch, not a fragile invalid to be pitied. "You infuriate me sometimes," Lily told him one afternoon as they rode out to see the wildflowers blooming in the high meadows. Jake had chosen the route carefully, nothing too steep or difficult but still beautiful and worth the journey. "Why is that?" Jake asked, looking amused. "Because you do not let me feel sorry for myself," Lily said. "It would be easier if you did. Easier is not always better." Jake dismounted and helped her down from her mare, steadying her as she found her balance. "Besides, you are too smart and too talented to waste your life on self-pity." "I am damaged goods," Lily said, but there was less conviction in the words than there once had been. Jake cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You are the strongest, bravest woman I have ever known, Lily Graves. And I am tired of hearing you talk about yourself like you are worthless. You survived something that would have broken most people. You lost your husband and your health in one terrible moment, and yet here you are, still fighting, still living. If that is not strength, I do not know what is." "Jake," Lily breathed, overwhelmed by the fierce conviction in his voice. "I love you," he said simply. "All of you. The parts that work perfectly and the parts that do not. The days when you are strong and the days when you hurt so badly you can barely get out of bed. I love your stubborn pride and your sharp mind and the way you try so hard to be independent, even when accepting help would be wiser. I love everything about you, Lily, and I need you to start believing that you are worthy of being loved." Lily had cried so many times since the accident, bitter tears of pain and loss and frustration. But the tears that came now were different, cleansing and cathartic. "I love you too," she whispered. "I have been so afraid to say it, afraid it could not be real, but I love you, Jake Emerson." Jake kissed her then, gentle and sweet and full of promise, and Lily felt something inside her shift and settle, like a bone finally set properly after months of misalignment. This was real. This man loved her, truly and completely, and maybe, just maybe, she could learn to love herself the same way. They married in July, a simple ceremony in the small church with a handful of friends as witnesses. Lily wore a blue dress that had belonged to her mother, and Jake wore his best shirt, and the same serious, steady expression he had worn the first day they met. When the preacher asked if he took Lily to be his wife, Jake's "I do" rang out clear and strong, and when he kissed her to seal their vows, Lily felt whole for the first time since the accident. The ranch owner had given Jake a small cabin on the property as a wedding gift, a sturdy two-room structure with a good stove and a porch that looked out over the valley. Jake carried Lily over the threshold, mindful of her leg, and set her down gently in what would be their home. "It is not much," he said, suddenly uncertain. "It is perfect," Lily assured him, looking around at the simple furnishings, the wildflowers Jake had picked and placed in a jar on the table. "It is ours." That night, as they lay together in their marriage bed, Jake traced the scars on Lily's leg, the evidence of the surgeon's desperate attempts to save the limb. Lily had always hated those scars, had avoided looking at them whenever possible, but under Jake's gentle touch, they felt less like marks of ruin and more like proof of survival. "Does it hurt?" he asked softly. "Sometimes. Especially when the weather changes." Lily hesitated, then added, "I will likely always walk with a crutch, Jake. The doctor said there is too much damage for it to ever heal completely. You need to understand that." "I do understand." Jake pressed a kiss to her temple. "And it does not change anything, Lily. We will build a good life together, you and I. A life where you are valued and loved exactly as you are." "I believe you," Lily said, and realized with a start that she meant it. The fear and self-doubt that had plagued her for so long were still there, but they were quieter now, drowned out by Jake's steady presence and unwavering love. The first months of marriage were an adjustment. Learning to share space, to build routines together, to navigate the intimacy of daily life. Jake worked long days at the ranch, but he always came home to Lily, and slowly, she began to build a new life for herself. She started tutoring children in the evenings, teaching them to read and cipher at her kitchen table. Word spread, and soon she had half a dozen regular students, their parents paying her in cash or trade goods. It was not the same as teaching in a proper schoolhouse, but it was meaningful work, and Lily felt useful again. She also began to venture out more, accepting Jake's invitations to social gatherings and church events. People stared sometimes at the young woman with the crutch and the handsome cowboy husband, but Jake's hand on her back and his proud smile silenced most of the whispers. He never acted ashamed of her, never tried to hide her away, and gradually, Lily stopped feeling like she needed to hide either. One evening, nearly a year into their marriage, they were sitting on the porch watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky when Lily turned to Jake. "I never thought I would be happy again," she said quietly. "After the accident, after Thomas died, I thought my life was over in any way that mattered." "And now?" Jake asked, though his smile suggested he already knew the answer. "Now I think maybe life is not about going back to who we were before tragedy struck. Maybe it is about becoming someone new, someone shaped by both the joy and the pain." Lily reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. "You taught me that, Jake. You saw worth in me when I could not see it in myself." "You always had worth," Jake corrected gently. "I just helped you remember it." Lily leaned her head on his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of him, leather and hay and the soap he used. "I want to have a family with you," she said. "I know it might be difficult with my leg, but I want to try." Jake's arm tightened around her. "Are you sure?" "I will not lie, Lily. Childbirth is dangerous even for healthy women. With your injuries, there could be complications. I know the risks." Lily had thought about little else for weeks, weighing her desire for children against the very real possibility that pregnancy could cripple or kill her. "But I want to try anyway. I want to build something with you, Jake. Something that is ours." "Then we will try," Jake said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "And whatever happens, we will face it together." It took nearly 2 years, 2 years of hoping and disappointment and quiet grief, before Lily finally felt the flutter of life inside her. The doctor was cautious, warning her to rest often and not to overexert herself, but Lily had never been good at sitting still. She continued tutoring, though she limited her students to 3 afternoons a week. She tended her small garden, learning to work on her knees since standing for long periods was too taxing. And she prepared for the baby with a mixture of excitement and terror that Jake weathered with his usual steady patience. What if something goes wrong? She asked him one night, her hand on her swelling belly. "Then we will deal with it," Jake said simply. "But worrying about what might happen will not change anything, Lily. We can only take each day as it comes. You are too calm, Lily complained, but she smiled despite herself. One of us has to be. Jake knelt beside her chair and placed his own hand over hers, feeling the baby move beneath their palms. This child is already strong, just like its mother. I have faith that everything will be all right. Lily wanted to believe him, but as her pregnancy progressed, and the weight of the baby put increasing strain on her damaged leg, fear gnawed at her. Walking became nearly impossible without stopping to rest every few steps. The pain she had learned to manage flared into something constant and overwhelming. Some days she could barely get out of bed, and Jake would carry her to the rocking chair by the window so she could at least see outside. "I am useless," she said bitterly one morning as Jake brought her breakfast on a tray. "You are growing our child," Jake corrected. "That is the opposite of useless. I cannot even walk across the room without help. So I will help you." Jake set the tray aside and crouched in front of her, taking her hands. "Lily, look at me. You are not useless. You are not a burden. You are my wife, the mother of my child, and the woman I love more than anything in this world. Having a difficult pregnancy does not change any of that." "How can you still love me when I am like this?" Lily asked, hating the tremor in her voice. "How can I not?" Jake's eyes were fierce. "You are carrying our baby, Lily. You are in pain every day, but you keep going. You keep teaching your students, you keep smiling at me, you keep fighting. That is not weakness. That is courage." Lily's son was born on a cold February morning in 1885, after 18 hours of labor that left her weak and shaking but triumphant. Jake held the baby first, his face transformed by wonder as he looked down at the tiny, squalling life they had created together. "He is perfect," Jake breathed. "Lily, he is perfect." The doctor placed the baby in Lily's arms, and she looked down at her son's red, wrinkled face and felt her heart expand beyond what she thought possible. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "We have been waiting for you." They named him Thomas, after Lily's first husband, because Jake insisted that honoring the past did not diminish the present. Baby Thomas was healthy and hungry and had his father's blue eyes, and Lily fell in love with him so completely that it terrified her. Recovery from childbirth was slow and painful, her body needing weeks to heal from the trauma. Jake took time away from the ranch to care for her and the baby, changing diapers and walking the floor with Thomas when he cried at night. He brought Lily her meals in bed, helped her hobble to the washroom, and never once complained about the extra work. "You do too much," Lily told him one evening as he rocked Thomas to sleep. "You should be resting too." "I will rest when you are back on your feet," Jake said. "Or, well, back on your foot and crutch," he added with a small smile. Lily laughed despite herself. "That is a terrible joke, but it made you laugh." Jake's expression softened. "I have missed your laugh, Lily." "I have missed laughing," Lily admitted. "I was so afraid during the pregnancy, Jake. Afraid something would go wrong, afraid I would not survive, afraid the baby would be hurt because of me. But you did survive. And Thomas is healthy. We are a family now, Lily." Jake stood and carefully transferred the sleeping baby to his cradle, then came to sit on the edge of their bed. "I know it has been hard. I know your leg is worse now than it was before, but we will figure it out just like we always do." He was right, of course. Her leg was worse, the pregnancy having done additional damage that would never fully heal. There were days when the pain was so bad that even her crutch was not enough, and Jake fashioned her a wheeled chair for those times when walking was impossible. Lily hated it at first, saw it as another symbol of her brokenness, but gradually she came to appreciate the freedom it gave her. She could move around the house independently, could take Thomas outside to feel the sunshine, could teach her students even on her worst days. Life settled into a new rhythm. Jake worked the ranch and built furniture in the evenings, selling his pieces in town to supplement their income. Lily taught and cared for Thomas and learned to bake bread one-handed while holding her son on her hip. They had less money than many families, but they had love in abundance, and slowly, Lily began to understand that this was enough. More than enough. When Thomas was 2 years old, Lily found herself pregnant again. This pregnancy was easier than the first, perhaps because she knew what to expect, or perhaps because her body had learned how to accommodate both baby and injury. Their daughter was born in the spring of 1887, a tiny, fierce thing with Lily's dark hair and a surprisingly loud cry. "She is going to be trouble," Jake said fondly, cradling his daughter with the same wonder he had shown with Thomas. "Takes after her mother, then," Lily said, exhausted but happy. They named her Rose, and she was every bit as determined as her mother. By the time she was a year old, Rose was pulling herself up on furniture and attempting to walk, heedless of the inevitable tumbles. Thomas, now 3, appointed himself her protector, toddling after her and trying to catch her when she fell. "They are beautiful," Lily said one afternoon, watching her children play in the sunshine while she sat in her wheeled chair on the porch. "We made something good, Jake." "We did," Jake agreed, settling into the chair beside her. He looked older now than he had when they met, lines forming at the corners of his eyes and a few threads of silver appearing in his dark hair. They had been married for 6 years, and they had been hard years in many ways, but they had also been full of love and laughter and small, precious moments. "Do you ever regret it?" Lily asked quietly. "Marrying me, I mean, taking on everything that comes with me." Jake turned to her, his blue eyes as steady and honest as they had been the day he told her he would love her broken pieces. "Never," he said firmly. "Not for one single moment, Lily. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You and our children, this life we built together. Even though it is harder than it would have been with someone else. Someone who could dance with you and go on long rides and not need help with basic things." "I do not want someone else," Jake said. "I want you. I have always wanted you exactly as you are." He reached over and took her hand. "Lily, when are you going to understand that you are not less because of your injury? You are just you, and you is exactly who I choose every single day." Lily felt the familiar prickle of tears, but they were good tears now, the kind that came from being understood and loved so completely. "I choose you too," she said softly. "Every day, Jake Emerson, I choose you." The years passed, each one adding new joys and challenges to their lives. Thomas started school, riding to town with his father 3 times a week. Rose learned to read at her mother's knee, her sharp mind soaking up knowledge like a sponge. Jake's furniture-making business grew, his pieces known throughout the region for their quality and craftsmanship. Lily's tutoring became so sought after that she had to turn students away, and the school board eventually asked her to consult on curriculum, acknowledging at last that her mind was as sharp as ever, regardless of her physical limitations. They added a room onto their cabin, then another, expanding their small home to accommodate their growing family. Jake built ramps so Lily could navigate the doorways in her wheeled chair, and he installed railings throughout the house so she could pull herself along on the days when she preferred to use her crutch. He never made her feel less than for needing these accommodations, and Lily stopped feeling ashamed of them. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Jake brought Lily to the meadow where he had first told her he loved her. The wildflowers were in bloom again, painting the landscape in brilliant yellows and purples and reds. He lifted her from her horse and settled her on a blanket in the grass, then sat beside her, their shoulders touching. 10 years, Lily marveled. Has it really been that long? "Best 10 years of my life," Jake said. "Though I will admit, Some parts were harder than I anticipated. Like carrying your wife up and down stairs when she is 9 months pregnant, Jake laughed. That was an adventure, yes. But I was thinking more about watching you hurt and not being able to fix it. That has been the hardest part, Lily. Knowing you are in pain and not being able to take it away. Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. You do take it away, in a sense. Not the physical pain, but the pain of feeling worthless and broken and alone. You took that away the day you told me you would love my broken pieces, and you have kept taking it away every day since. You were never broken, Jake said quietly. Just hurt. There is a difference. I know that now. Lily turned to look at him, this man who had changed her life so completely. I spent so long thinking I had to be whole to be worthy of love, but you taught me that wholeness is not about physical perfection. It is about accepting yourself, flaws and limitations and all, and allowing yourself to be loved anyway. You deserve all the love in the world, Jake said, his voice rough with emotion. You are the strongest person I know, Lily. Raising our children, teaching dozens of students over the years, managing a household despite constant pain. You amaze me every single day. We amaze each other then, Lily said, because you have never once made me feel like a burden, Jake. You have only ever made me feel cherished and valued and seen. That is a gift I can never repay. You do not need to repay it. That is what love is, Lily, giving without expecting anything in return. Jake kissed her softly, a kiss that tasted of sunshine and wildflowers and 10 years of partnership. I would choose you again, every single time. I hope you know that. I do know that, Lily said, and it was true. The fear and doubt that had plagued her for so long had faded, replaced by the deep certainty that she was loved, truly and completely, exactly as she was. When Thomas was 12 and Rose was 10, the school board approached Lily with an unexpected offer. The current teacher was retiring, and they wanted Lily to take over the position. They had built a ramp to the schoolhouse and were willing to modify the interior to accommodate her needs. The pay was good, and the position was permanent. Lily sat at the kitchen table that night, staring at the contract they had given her, her mind spinning. I never thought they would ask me back, she said to Jake. After they let me go, I assumed that door was closed forever. You proved them wrong, Jake said simply. Your students love you. Their parents respect you. The board would be fools not to hire you, Lily. But it will be hard, teaching all day, managing a classroom full of children. Lily gestured to her crutch, leaning against the wall. What if I cannot do it? What if you can? Jake countered. Lily, you have spent the last 12 years teaching children in our home, often while caring for our own babies. You have done the work of 3 people with half the resources. If anyone can handle a classroom, it is you. But what about you and the children? You will have to manage more of the household duties. We will figure it out as a family, Jake said firmly. Thomas and Rose are old enough to help more, and I can adjust my work schedule. This is your dream, Lily. You do not turn down dreams just because they might be difficult. Lily looked at the contract again, at the neat handwriting offering her a second chance at the career she had mourned for so long. It is my dream, she admitted. I want this, Jake. I want it so much it frightens me. Then take it, Jake said. Take it and know that we will all be here to support you. So Lily signed the contract, and in September of 1893 she returned to the schoolhouse for the first time in over a decade. The children stared at her crutch for the first few days, whispered about the teacher who could not walk properly. But Lily silenced their doubts with the force of her knowledge and the warmth of her teaching. She was patient and firm and creative, finding ways to teach that did not require her to stand at the front of the room for hours. She brought the lessons to the students, moving among them with her crutch, kneeling beside their desks when her leg allowed and using her wheeled chair when it did not. By the end of the first month, the children forgot to notice her disability. She was simply Mrs. Emerson, the best teacher most of them had ever had, the woman who made learning exciting and who believed they could all succeed, regardless of their circumstances. The work was exhausting, but it was also exhilarating. Lily came home each evening tired and aching but fulfilled in a way she had not felt in years. Jake would have dinner waiting, Thomas and Rose would tell her about their days, and Lily would fall into bed feeling like her life had purpose beyond mere survival. "I was right, you know," Jake said one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains. "You are an extraordinary teacher, Lily. The children adore you." "I adore them," Lily admitted. "I had forgotten how much I love this work, how much joy there is in watching a child's eyes light up when they finally understand something." "You were meant to do this," Jake said. "I am glad the school board finally realized what they had been missing." Lily leaned into him, grateful beyond words for his support. "I could not do it without you, Jake. You and the children, you make everything possible. We are a team," Jake said simply. "We always have been." The years continued to unfold, each one bringing new experiences and growth. Thomas grew into a tall, serious young man who wanted to study law. Rose developed a passion for medicine, spending hours reading every book on anatomy and healing she could find. Jake's furniture business expanded, and he hired an apprentice to help with the workload. Lily taught generation after generation of children, her classroom a place of learning and laughter and acceptance. Her leg never improved. Some years it was worse than others, the old injury flaring up with arthritis and nerve damage that left her bedridden for days. But she adapted, as she always had, finding ways to live fully despite the limitations. She taught her students that disability was not the same as inability, that everyone had challenges to overcome, and that strength came in many forms. When Thomas graduated from law school and opened a practice in Montrose, Lily and Jake were in the front row of the courtroom for his first case. When Rose was accepted to medical school in Denver, they celebrated with tears and pride, and the quiet knowledge that their children had become extraordinary adults. "We did well," Jake said one evening as they sat on the porch that had been part of their lives for over 25 years. They were in their 50s now, both showing the signs of age and hard work. Jake's hair was more silver than black, and Lily's face was lined with years of smiles and sorrows, but they were still together, still partners, still deeply in love. "We did," Lily agreed. "Our children are good people, Jake, kind and smart and determined to make the world better." "They learned that from you," Jake said. "From us," Lily corrected. "We taught them together." Jake took her hand, his thumb tracing the familiar pattern on the back of her palm. "Do you remember the day we met? When I caught you outside the general store?" "I remember thinking I would never see you again," Lily said, "and feeling strangely disappointed about that." "I knew that day," Jake said quietly. "Knew you were special, knew I wanted to know you better." "Even though I was damaged and bitter and barely holding myself together, you were surviving," Jake said. "Against terrible odds, you were still standing, still fighting. That is what I saw, Lily. Not brokenness, but incredible strength." Lily smiled, her eyes misting. "You saved my life, you know, not by fixing me, but by loving me enough that I could learn to fix myself." "We saved each other," Jake said. "I was drifting before I met you, Lily, working and existing but not really living. You gave me purpose. You gave me a family and a home and a reason to be better than I was." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. The mountains stood eternal in the distance, unchanged by the passage of time, and Lily thought about how much her own life had changed since that terrible Tuesday in 1881, when everything she knew had shattered. She had been broken. It was true. The accident had taken things from her that she would never get back. But it had also led her here, to this porch and this man and this life full of love and meaning. She would never be the woman she had been before the accident, but she had become someone else, someone perhaps stronger and wiser and more compassionate. "I would not change it," she said suddenly. "The accident, the pain, all of it. Because it brought me to you, and I would not trade this life for anything." Jake's arm tightened around her. "Even on the bad days, when the pain is terrible and you can barely move, even then," Lily said firmly, "because even on the worst days I have you, I have our children. I have work that matters and a life that is full and good. The pain is real, but so is the joy, and the joy is stronger." "I love you, Lily Emerson," Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. "After all these years, I love you more than I did the day we married. More than I thought it was possible to love another person." "I love you too," Lily whispered. "You taught me that being broken is not the same as being worthless, that I could be loved despite my scars and limitations, that I was enough exactly as I was." "You were always enough," Jake said. "I just helped you see it." They kissed then, a soft, sweet kiss that spoke of decades of partnership and love. When they pulled apart, Lily rested her head on Jake's shoulder and looked out at the life they had built together. The cabin had grown over the years, rooms added for children and grandchildren who would someday visit. The garden Lily tended was lush with vegetables and flowers. Jake's workshop stood to the side, full of projects in various stages of completion. It was a modest life by some standards, but it was theirs, and it was beautiful. As the years passed into their 60s, Jake and Lily settled into the rhythm of older age. Jake retired from ranching, focusing entirely on his furniture work. Lily continued teaching until her 60th birthday, when she finally admitted that standing in front of a classroom for hours was becoming too taxing. The school held a retirement party in her honor, and former students came from across the territory to thank her for changing their lives. "You gave me confidence when no one else believed in me," one young woman said, tears in her eyes. "You taught me that learning was a gift, not a chore," a young man added. "You showed us that limitations do not have to define us," said another, and Lily recognized her, a girl who had lost her hearing in childhood and had fought to stay in school despite pressure to quit. Jake stood beside Lily throughout the celebration, his hand on her back, his pride evident in every smile. When they finally made it home that evening, exhausted and overwhelmed, he helped her into bed and sat beside her. "You touched so many lives," he said softly. "Hundreds of children, Lily. You gave them hope and knowledge and the belief that they could succeed." "I just taught them," Lily said, but she was smiling. "You did more than teach. You inspired." Jake kissed her forehead. "I am so proud of you, Lily, proud of everything you have accomplished." "I could not have done any of it without you," Lily said, taking his hand. "You have been my rock for over 30 years, Jake, my partner, my support, my greatest love." "And you have been mine," Jake said. "We have lived a good life, have we not?" "The best life," Lily agreed. Thomas came home from Denver with his family, 2 grandchildren who climbed on Jake's lap and demanded stories. Rose visited from her medical practice in Durango, bringing news of the patients she had saved and the women she was training to be midwives. The cabin was full of laughter and noise and love, and Lily sat in her wheeled chair watching her family and feeling grateful for every single moment. "Grandmother, tell us about when you met grandfather," one of the grandchildren demanded, a bright-eyed boy of 7. Lily smiled. "It was a long time ago in 1882. I was sad and hurt, and your grandfather was the kindest man I had ever met." "Did you fall in love right away?" the boy asked. "Not right away," Lily admitted. "I was afraid to love again, but your grandfather was very patient. He showed me that I could be loved exactly as I was, crutch and all." "Were you scared?" the boy pressed. "Terrified," Lily said honestly. "But being brave does not mean you are not scared. It means you do the thing anyway, even though you are afraid." Jake caught her eye across the room and smiled, that same warm, steady smile that had captured her heart 3 decades ago. Lily smiled back, her heart full. On their 40th wedding anniversary, Jake took Lily back to the meadow one last time. They were both too old for such adventures now, but Jake had arranged for a wagon with a cushioned seat, and he drove them slowly up the mountain road to the place where he had first told her he loved her. The wildflowers were in bloom, just as they had been all those years ago. Jake spread a blanket on the ground and helped Lily settle onto it, her body stiff and aching with age and old injuries. But her spirit was as strong as ever, and when Jake sat beside her, she felt young again. 40 years, Jake said, wonder in his voice. 40 years, Lily. Can you believe it? Barely, Lily admitted. It feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once. I would do it all again, Jake said. Every moment, every challenge, every joy. I would choose you every single time. Even the hard parts, Lily asked. The nights I woke you up crying from pain. The times you had to carry me. The limitations my injury placed on our lives. Especially the hard parts, Jake said firmly. Because those are the moments that proved what we have is real, Lily. Anyone can love someone when life is easy. But you and I loved each other through the difficult times, the painful times, the times when it would have been easier to give up. That is the kind of love that lasts. Lily felt tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. You saved my life, Jake Emerson. That day outside the general store when you caught me and looked at me like I was worth something. You saved me. And you saved mine, Jake said, his own eyes wet. You gave me purpose and family and a love I never thought I would find. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Lily. The absolute best thing. They sat together in the meadow, surrounded by wildflowers and memories, and Lily thought about the journey that had brought them here. From brokenness to wholeness, from despair to joy, from loneliness to love. It had not been an easy path, but it had been worth every single step. I never believed I could be happy again, Lily said softly. After the accident, I thought my life was over, but I was wrong. My old life ended, but a new one began, a better one in so many ways. You are remarkable, Jake said, his voice full of emotion. Then and now, Lily, you are the strongest, bravest, most incredible woman I have ever known. I am just me, Lily said. Broken pieces that learn to fit together in a new way. And I love every single piece, Jake said, echoing the words he had spoken 40 years ago. I always will, Lily. Until my last breath, I will love you. Lily leaned into him, her husband and partner and dearest friend. The mountains stood eternal around them, witnesses to the love story that had unfolded in their shadow. She thought about the young widow she had been, so certain she would never be whole again. And she thought about the woman she had become, scarred and imperfect but loved beyond measure. Jake had been right all those years ago. She did not need to be whole to be worthy of love. She just needed to be herself, and that was enough. It had always been enough. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of gold and crimson, Jake helped Lily back into the wagon. They drove home slowly, savoring the beauty of the evening and the quiet contentment of being together. When they reached their cabin, their children and grandchildren were waiting, having arranged a surprise anniversary celebration. There was food and music and laughter, and Lily sat in her favorite chair surrounded by the family she and Jake had created. Thomas raised a glass to toast them, his voice breaking with emotion as he thanked his parents for showing him what real love looked like. Rose spoke about the lessons she had learned from watching her mother's strength and her father's devotion. The grandchildren performed a song they had practiced, their young voices sweet and slightly off-key. When the celebration finally wound down and the last guest had departed, Jake and Lily sat on their porch one more time, watching the stars emerge. "That was perfect," Lily said softly. "All of it. The meadow, the party, our family, perfect." "It was," Jake agreed. "Though not nearly as perfect as you." Lily laughed, the sound warm and full. "After 40 years, you still know exactly what to say." "After 40 years, I still mean every word." Jake took her hand, holding it gently. "Thank you, Lily, for saying yes all those years ago. For taking a chance on me. For building this beautiful life together. Thank you for seeing me when I could not see myself," Lily whispered. "For loving my broken pieces. For never giving up on me even when I wanted to give up on myself." They sat in silence, hands clasped, hearts full. The pain in Lily's leg was a constant companion, but so was Jake's love, and she had learned long ago which one to focus on. She was 64 years old, a teacher and wife and mother and grandmother. She had lived through tragedy and emerged stronger. She had loved and been loved in return. She was not whole, not in the way she had once been, but she was complete, and that was something far more precious. The broken pieces of her life had come together in unexpected ways, creating something beautiful and enduring. And through it all, Jake had been there, steady and true, loving her exactly as she was. As they finally made their way inside, Jake's arm around her waist and her crutch supporting her other side, Lily looked back at the mountains one last time. They had witnessed her journey from devastation to joy, from brokenness to love. And they would stand long after she was gone, eternal and unchanging. But the love she and Jake had built, the family they had created, the lives they had touched, those things would endure too. Not in stone and earth, but in memory and heart, passed down through generations of children who would tell the story of their grandmother who walked with a crutch and their grandfather who loved her for it. That night, as Lily drifted off to sleep in Jake's arms, she felt at peace. Her life had been hard in ways she never could have imagined, but it had also been beautiful beyond her wildest dreams. She had learned that wholeness was not about perfection, but about acceptance. That love was not conditional, but given freely. That strength came not from never falling, but from standing back up every single time. She had cried once that she would never be whole again, and Jake had promised to love her broken pieces too. He had kept that promise every day for 40 years, and in doing so, he had shown her that she had never been broken at all. Just changed, just different, just beautifully, perfectly herself. And that, Lily thought as sleep claimed her, had been more than enough. It had been everything.